All right, Michael, your turn.
Okay, everybody can hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna start a timer as well so I can keep myself honest. I'm gonna try to cover a bit of ground, and I'll say next, like point to this when it's time for the next slide. And I'm probably gonna say things that are wrong as well, so bear with me. Okay. I'm going to start with a brief history of philosophy and how thought and language have been studied in the humanities, and then finally seeing how they meet up in 1950s France. Also the images might take a sec to load, so if they're slow, sorry. In the Republic, Plato put forth the allegory of the cave, writing that what we experience in our everyday lives are shadows cast by ideal forms of objects. We live in a world of objects, but the heaven of forms, these idealized forms, is inaccessible to us. In 1641, Descartes, believing in the supremacy of consciousness and the rational intellect, could reveal the divine world, wrote in Meditations on First Philosophy, a logical argument for the existence of God, arriving at the famous maxim, cogito ergo sum, or I think, therefore I am. In the Enlightenment, Immanuel Kant, one of the most influential philosophers, talked about the divide between appearances of things called phenomena versus the things in themselves, noumena, which constitute the nature of reality itself. Marx, writing in the 1800s, wrote that consciousness and ideology are the product of one's material conditions or one's class. For instance, a business owner tending to see the accumulation of wealth as a virtue. Writing before and after the European revolutions of 1848, in which the monarchy of France was toppled, but not Germany, Marxists came to attribute something called false consciousness to explain why people did not move to action to support their own interests. To quote John Steinbeck, socialism never took root in America because the poor see themselves not as exploited workers, but as temporarily embarrassed millionaires. Next quote. Okay, this is me at my alma mater, Clark, in which we have a life-size statue of Freud. I'm gonna have to go a little quicker, so I'm a little biased, and I promise I don't dress like this all the time. Freud was the founder of psychoanalysis. He theorized that the unconscious is a reservoir of feelings, thoughts, urges, memories outside of conscious awareness. He believed that the unconscious influences our behavior. A Freudian slip called a parapraxis is an error in speech, memory, or action due to the interference of the unconscious, such as when you say one thing, but you mean another. Art and the humanities at this point was influenced by technology and was very utopian, such as Futurism. Oh, sorry, next slide. Futurism in Italy. The Zeppelin, the first airship, was built in 1900 and the first plane in 1903. However, World War I, generally a bad time, caused people to reevaluate this utopianism. Art after World War I tended to be very charged, conveying a sense of hopelessness, like Dadaism, or just the absence of meaning, like Surrealism. Literature at this point was very aware of its form and structure, using experimental techniques such as stream of consciousness. World War II saw the development of both existentialism and absurdism. With the publication of the Elementary Structures of Kinship, European thought was reinvigorated. Anthropologist Levi-Strauss, not related to the pants, put forth the idea of structural anthropology, that deep immutable structures exist in all cultures, and consequently that cultural practices have homologous counterparts, essentially that cultures are all equitable. The idea of structuralism spread to other humanities as well. Philosopher Louis Althusser applied structuralism to Marxist thought, and linguist Ferdinand de Saussure developed something called structural linguistics, or semiotics, the study of signs. He theorized that signs are comprised of both a signifier, which is a word or representation, as well as the signified, which is the thing being referenced. The psychiatrist and psychoanalyst Jacques Lacan took the idea of structural linguistics and applied it to Freud's theory of the unconscious mind. Developing an approach to therapy that was innovative as well as controversial, Lacan gave widely attended lectures in Paris. Famous for the idea that the unconscious is structured like a language, Lacan proposed that the structure is a network of signifiers connected together in a chain of meaning called the symbolic order. The idea of a parapraxis, or Freudian slip, comes from connections between these signifiers, personal meanings that we're not aware of. Oh, sorry, keep it on that. The symbolic is one of three interconnected registers of human experience, the others being the imaginary, which is the idealized representation of ourselves, and the real. Lacan's idea of the subject is a self that has been alienated by language, alienated, split, or trapped, and disappears as soon as we attempt to describe it in words. selfhood to Lacan only exists as gaps between individual signifiers. Lacan developed an algebra or visual notation to describe and relate his concepts together. This makes him somewhat hard to read and perhaps a little bit extra. Oh, my own timer went off, I'm sorry. And then finally, if you just go two more, with Derrida's 1969 lecture, Structure, Sign, and Play, structuralism itself was deconstructed and Europe's next phase of the humanities began, known as post-structuralism, a topic for another time. Thank you.
Woo!